Hello everyone, this is Jake here, and today we're going to talk about the Adventure Soaring Strings bundle from Musical Sampling. What is this? Well, it is an orchestral, it's a two-pack of orchestral string libraries. They're aimed at sort of a classic Hollywood score type of sound, so think John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, things like that. They are, however, very versatile, so you can definitely use it for more types of really anything like action blockbuster, even trailer music. So yeah, they're a modest section size. So I'd say like right about the sweet spot of like an orchestral size. So we're looking at 10 violins, 6 violas, 5 celli, 4 basses, and pardon me facing my laptop screen. I'm reading off of notes because I'm terrible at improvising. So I'm also going to note that there aren't any second violins in these libraries. It's all just one violin section. However, there are production tricks. So, how do they sound? Well, I would say bright, energetic, and aggressive. And you'll probably hear me say those 3 words a lot in the throughout the course of this video. Yeah, so they are recorded in a moderate-sized scoring stage or studio. So they have a very dry, tight sound, which makes them really great for blending with other libraries, which I'll definitely go more into at some point. They also have just one mixed mic position. And for me, that's kind of a plus because I don't like dealing with multi-mics, and that actually makes the file size smaller. So between the two libraries, you're looking at a total of roughly 7 gigabytes of a download size, which is like really tiny compared to a lot of like a lot of the bigger players out there. So what are these libraries for? Or who are these for? Well, I'd say that this is more so for composers who want a plug and play type of experience. We're talking, straight out of the box, just, get to work kind of deal. So if you're the kind of person that likes to tweak about with multi-mics or to mess around with with key switches or different kinds of parameters on the UI, this ain't for you. So I'm just gonna let you know right then and there. So this is definitely something that could be used. Let's say if you already have an established foundation of something like Spitfire or East West Hollywood, CSS. This could also be a very good thing to have as an extra layer. What I tend to use it for is my bread and butter actually, and I'll show you my computer screen here. So everything that I have loaded here, this is part of my normal everyday template. So between these two libraries, I use these just about every day. That might sound a little crazy to some folks because this might not be worthy of being sort of a bread and butter, but yeah, for me it works just fine. Let's go over soaring strings. And so those are legatos and sustains. That's all there is. I say that like it's like, not enough, but trust me, these legatos are plenty. Let's take a look at the interface here, and don't mind this, just we'll ignore that for now. So legato violin. So here we have a very simple user interface. We have just 2 buttons. 2 buttons, and that's it. Let's see. We have one for repetitions. And that is that's to trigger rebo. So if you're doing like same note. And I believe that those are actual sampled rebos. I'm not sure, but that I believe that is the case. So what happens when we turn it off? And on. So yeah, a little bit of a difference. It's definitely there. 2 silence just means that you can set the mod wheel dynamic down to 0 or niente. So without it, this is the lowest dynamic. With silence, which is always a plus for me because I like my samples to go down to 0 and not have to use an extra controller. So yeah, I mean, aside from the, all the interface perks here, I mean, just the sound, like right out of the box, this thing sings. If I can play it right. Yeah, so one thing I noticed is just that it's not only is it very smooth and responsive, but it's also just really fun to play. And I think that there are a lot of other libraries out there that will compromise for the sake of getting like a good legato sound, and they have to sacrifice response time or playability, or vice versa, where it's like really playable but it doesn't sound that good. This is kind of like a perfect blend between the two concepts, and it just, I mean, the sound, the transitions, just absolute bonkers. Let me go ahead and play a little ditty that I kind of put together ahead of time. And here we go. So yeah, very, very nice. Definitely meant for that sort of romantic, like classic vibe. I want to say that where we do have some really good things about it, there are also a few things that I don't like about these legatos. The first thing to point out is that it doesn't have, or at least the legato patches do not have pianissimo dynamics, the double P. Now it does get quite soft here. But it just doesn't have that extra soft layer that's like very like feathery and I guess ethereal is a good way to put it. You'll hear that a lot in some of Spitfire stuff or even CSS, where they really excel at the more soft, feathery types of dynamics. Now, they do have them recorded, and they are present in the regular sustains. And actually, this particular patch, they removed some. They have two versions of the sustain patches. There's one that's full with all the dynamics from pianissimo to triple forte, and then I have these loaded, which are just the bottom or the soft dynamics. So yeah, they are there, just not in the legatos. And I would imagine maybe, I mean, I don't know anything about, the inner workings of the company or anything, but I would assume that it was a compromise to save resources, because one legato patch is roughly half a gigabyte of a RAM footprint. So, pretty hefty, but I think the sound definitely makes up for that. Another thing that I want to point out is that there is no portamento control in these legatos. Now, it's all bow change, I think, or at least mostly bow change, which sounds great. But you will be able to hear in the wider intervals there's just like a natural slurring or bending, which is just, part of the performance. But Those are baked in. You cannot change those. And I do have workarounds, which I will get into a little bit. The third thing that I want to emphasize on where they kind of fall short is a lack of a sharp attack. I mean, it has like somewhat of an attack, I think. Here, let's try this. Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't really meant to be an attack-heavy kind of library, but sometimes I just want that extra push to, emphasize a melodic line kind of deal. So what I did in place of that was I have a marcato from Adventure Strings stacked with the legato, and we got this. And I did have to do a little bit of back-end tweaking, which, I mean, I guess kind of, that's just me though. I mean, for you, it might be different, but I just did a little bit of editing there to make the marcato respond the way I want it to. So this is just the marcato. What I mentioned earlier about portamentos is that you can layer it with other things. And what I have here is I actually have my legato violins layered with audio modeling SWAM solo strings. This is version 2. I don't have version 3. Because this is all synth modeled instrument that has like practically zero delay with their intervals, I added a sample delay. I mean, yeah, it will diminish the playability a little bit, or the response time. I don't know if you can hear the key clacking through my mic. But it's just a little compromise in order for the timing to align with the ensembles. And then together you have this. So it makes up for it a little bit. Gives the gives the illusion of a portamento slide across the ensemble, but it's really just one the solo violin. And also, it does add a little bit of definition in the lower layers. So like I said earlier, how the Soaring Strings legatos lack the pianissimo, I think the SWAM just kind of brings it back a little bit. Just a little bit. And with this type of layering technique, you can do certain things, and I made this little cute little anime type track, and here I'll just do the strings for now, and then I'll show you the full arrangement. All right, first CPU spike of the night. All right, so let me go ahead and play that back, full arrangement. I kind of doubt this might actually be able to handle the full arrangement, so we'll cross our fingers, hope for the best. Okay, and I did layer with Adventure Strings for some of the rhythmic background, but that's Soaring Strings. Really, really, really wonderful tool to have. Onward to Adventure Strings, and I think I really wanted to touch on this one probably the most, because this one often gets underestimated. seeing that it's mostly marketed, or the main selling point is the adventure patches, which, you know, are these guys right here, which I'll talk about in a second. But there are quite a few things about this library that actually are not highlighted or not marketed that I want to point out that are actually pretty useful. So let's go ahead and look at the interface. And again, don't worry about this one. This is just a layer. Sustains, and again, we have like a 2-button interface here. Some of these only have just 1 button, so you'll see like a consistent workflow design across both libraries. And I forgot to add, or I forgot to mention that I did do processing, because this is my normal everyday template. I did do processing on this. So this isn't the raw sound. I do have reverbs over it. And here, actually, let's go ahead and just real quick, let's listen to how it sounds like without any reverb. So with reverb, so yeah, it's very very dry, very flexible. All right, so what is Adventure Strings? It is basically everything else outside of the legatos. So you have sustains, you have shorts, tremolos, you have trills, whole tone and half tone. They're actually on key switches, but I ended up doing split patches here because I don't like using key switches. Let's see, you have pizzicato, and then on basses you have Bartok snaps. And then pizzicatos, where do I have them? Right here. And I don't use pizzicatos a lot, so I just loaded the full ensemble. That's another thing I forgot to mention. These libraries do have full ensemble patches if if you're in a bind or you have a tight deadline and you need just a quick sketching tool. These got them. So let's see, pizzicato. Okay. Now, what sets these strings apart from other libraries is that I think is the way that they were recorded, or the way they were sampled and edited. So in a normal string library, let's say with a pizzicato, when you would get, you would record, let's say just, one note probably like every few seconds or every few bars, however it is set up. Whereas, at least from what I understand, is that these articulations were recorded in a real repetition, and so in the editing they pulled apart those samples from the repetition phrases, and so when you play in repetition, it actually sounds the way it would sound when you're playing in repetition, because it is a very different sound as opposed to recording just, one pluck like that, and then playing it like this. It is a noticeably different sound. So one thing I do want to point out here is the sustains. The sustains I feel like haven't really gotten a lot of love, but I really want to cover this because you really should not underestimate the power of the sustains in this library, because these are by far the most versatile sustains I've ever had in any library. So they can cover anything from soft, like that feathery pad-like sound, and then it can go into like pretty gnarly territory. All right, and I do have them layered with the staccatos, so let me turn those off. So yeah, even just the sustains by themselves are pretty nice. And And on top of that, you can also do some runs with them. Yeah, you just got to be careful with your performance because they can sound a little bit fake if you go wild with that. But in context with the mix, I mean, they sound really great and just really responsive. I love them. And what I ended up doing was I did the same concept with the legatos, with layering with the swam stuff. And so now I have like a full on, like, you know, really agile legato type thing. Okay. Definitely do not overlook the sustains in this library because they are fantastic. Let me go ahead and move on to the adventure patches. That's, that's the core of the library. And they sound like this. So yeah, so what makes them really special is that it's sort of they mix together a short and long, and I guess it's sort of like a glorified marcato type of deal. But you play along, like basically just play as you play, and you don't have to do any layering yourself with, you know, different kinds of programming and stacking. It's all right there under your fingers. Like that line right there, under like a normal string library, would have, you know, taken probably about 5 minutes for me to program, and it would have been just like an absolute nightmare. So being able to have that kind of power, that's just insane. I don't know, I like to call them really bouncy, expressive lines, bouncy melodic lines. I guess you can think of it as like pirate music or something. So one thing I will say about the adventure patches, well, a couple things. They do not have any of the soft layers. So from soft to loud, it's mainly just one or two dynamics on the loud side. So they are not meant for softer playing. They're definitely meant for more aggressive stuff. The other thing is that the staccato or like the short, sharp attack is triggered no matter where you are on the mod wheel or how hard or soft you play. Now, I think that you can switch between spiccato and staccato depending on how hard you hit. Like I think staccato is triggered with a harder velocity. Oh, what happened there? There we go. You know, you can't remove them or anything, so these are not ideal for if you want to do runs. You're better off using the sustains for that. Those are the, just two things to keep in mind if you're using these strings. Actually, I wanted to demonstrate a little bit of an action track I wrote. So I wrote this little track just to kind of get away from the whole, like, you know, classic Hollywood vibe and do something a little more, I guess, blockbuster action-y. I'll solo just the strings. Now, let me go ahead and play back the full arrangement. So I just added some, big drums and loops and a little bit of brass. And here we go. All right, so that is the Adventure Soaring Strings bundle from Musical Sampling. So, would I recommend this bundle? Absolutely. Would I recommend it even if you have already gotten an established foundation of libraries? Also, yes, because this offers an extra layer of energy that I don't hear in a lot of other libraries. And I think that is a very useful thing to have in terms of, just adding that extra push to improve your mockups. So that is it for now. And thank you all for watching.